here we go. Let's see how this works. I'm not sure. Oh, we'll see what you can see and what you can't see. Maybe I should bring it a little closer so we can actually see what's going on. See if it shouldn't be on me. Maybe that's a problem. Alright, so start with our misconception. Only changes in the atmosphere affect the climate. This is not true. As air moves, it's affected by sunlight, cloud cover, oceans, landforms such as mountains. We see a lot of evidence for this. So it's not just changes in the atmosphere that affect our climate. Moving on. We're going to start to talk about some of the things involved in our climate so we can understand how they change. First, our weather changes every day, but when we start to talk about climate, we're talking about average, year after year, conditions of temperature, precipitation, wind, clouds in a certain area. Hello. So these are our conditions that lead to our climate. The temperature is affected by the equator. Direct rays on the equator are what make that area the hottest on Earth. So, the other things that affect it are distance from large bodies of water and ocean currents. When we start to talk about latitude, we're talking about how far away you are from the equator. Remember the globe and the fake sun? Hope you remember that. The tropical zone, the area near the equator, is where the sun's rays hit most directly. Beyond that, all the way beyond that, we have our polar regions where it's cold. That's where we have 24-hour sunlight during the summer and 24-hour nighttime during the winter. In between those two, we have the temperate zones. And there are some particular facts about them. I'm not too concerned about you knowing the numbers. Altitude is different from altitude is how tall something is. So certain areas of land are taller than others, and that will affect their temperature. Mountains are high, and that affects their temperature more than the latitude. Another aspect that affects it is the distance from large bodies of water. Oceans, or lakes, can make temperatures of nearby land less extreme. They kind of keep you more stable because they give off the same amount of heat at a slower pace than ground. Much of the coasts, the west coasts, not the east coast, so this isn't us, this is California, of North America, South America, and Europe have marine climates. They have mild winters and cool summers, influenced by the ocean currents. Ocean currents, we talked about these, they swirl because of the Coriolis effect. Some warm water currents move from the tropics towards the poles, warming areas that would otherwise be colder. Some cold currents move from the poles down to the tropics, making certain areas colder than they would be otherwise. North America and Asia have areas inside of them that are too far away from the ocean to be affected by it. These are continental currents. They have cold winters and hot summers. Little fun fact. There's a species called Polypepsis that grows at the highest altitude of any tree. It's almost a mile high up in the air. The last key summary, a short one. Precipitation is a factor, always. But there are certain things that affect precipitation beyond just the water cycle. Prevailing winds are winds that generally move in a direction, always, the same direction. They always go that way. They depend on the movement of air masses. We talked about prevailing westerlies. If I remember the jet stream, right? They always go in the same way. And when they blow in the same way, because the way the ground is set up can affect how rain falls. Mountain ranges, when they block the path of wind, can make rain happen in a certain place more frequently than in another. How does this work? So, the prevailing wind always blows in one direction. The air masses, with their moisture, get pushed up into the air by the mountains. go up into the air, they get colder. We have cooler temperatures now. Particles in the air. The moisture in the air condenses, turns into a cloud, and begins to precipitate. And it always precipitates on the one same side of the mountain because that's where the prevailing wind blows. That is called the windward side of the mountain. The leeward side is the opposite side, and by the time the air gets to the leeward side, it starts to come down the mountain. It has no moisture left in it. So the leeward side of the mountain never sees any precipitation because of this. It also does not get hit by wind. There are some places on this earth where seasonal patterns only affect a certain side of the mountain because of the precipitation. Other than our prevailing winds, there are also seasonal winds. Seasonal winds are wind patterns that happen every so often. If you've heard of monsoon season, the rainy season, hurricane season, these all occur because a certain large region has a certain wind pattern during a certain time of the year. So, that is our activity. And we'll see how this goes.